Form I-485 Trap. Why USCIS is reopening 3-year-old medical exams. RFE warning. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. No warning, no phone call, no email preview with a subject line that softened the blow. Just a white envelope with the USCIS return address, the kind that makes your hands go cold before you even open it. Inside was a request for evidence, an RFE. And it wasn't asking about missing documents or a forgotten signature. It was asking for a brand new medical exam on a case that had been sitting peacefully, quietly, for over 3 years. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of checking your case status online every morning. 3 years of telling your family, soon, just a little longer. And now this. The RFE didn't care about any of that. It had one message: your medical exam has expired. You have 87 days to respond with a new one. Failure to respond may result in denial of your application. This isn't a rare story anymore. Across the country, applicants who filed Form I-485, the application to register permanent residence, are receiving these RFEs right now, today, this week, and most of them are completely blindsided. Because nobody told them this could happen. Nobody told them there was a hidden clock running on their medical exam from the moment it was submitted. And when that clock runs out, USCIS comes knocking. Most people panic when they see that envelope. They make the same mistake. They assume something went wrong on their end. They assume they missed something. They fall straight into the trap of reacting without understanding. But today, you're going to do something different. For the past several years, there had been quiet signals, not from official USCIS policy announcements, not from formal Federal Register notices, just patterns, that USCIS was preparing something that would catch thousands of applicants off guard. USCIS has always been meticulous, yes, but also inconsistent in how it applies its own rules. Their adjudication timeline has followed no reliable rhythm, no predictable schedule, almost no accountability. But what started triggering concern among immigration attorneys this year was that the inconsistency suddenly shifted. It became pointed. It became targeted. Cases that had been dormant, sitting untouched in the USCIS backlog for 2, 3, sometimes 4 years, were suddenly being reopened. And the first thing USCIS was asking for wasn't an updated affidavit of support. It wasn't an updated police clearance. It was the medical. Immigration attorneys who monitor USCIS RFE patterns recognize what's happening. The uptick in medical-related RFEs. The specific language being used in the notices. The fact that these cases were all filed before a very specific regulatory update. The sudden movement in cases that had been idle for years. And when USCIS starts moving old cases with medical RFEs, something structural is driving it. Earlier this year, practitioners and case managers at immigration law firms began documenting what they described as a concentrated wave of I-485 RFEs, specifically targeting the medical examination component, including requests tied to cases using Form I-693 submissions that were completed more than 2 years prior. This is something USCIS only does when the underlying policy has shifted, or when a case reaches an adjudication stage where validity periods become a compliance issue. There are a few scenarios that trigger this. The case finally reached an interview date or adjudication review after years in the backlog. Or the officer pulled the file and noted that the I-693 is no longer valid under current USCIS policy. Or the vaccination requirements listed on the original form have since been updated, and the applicant's record doesn't reflect compliance. Observers weren't sure which scenario applied in every case, or whether all three were converging at once. But one thing was unmistakable. USCIS was treating expired medical exams not as a minor technicality, but as a hard stop. And when USCIS treats something as a hard stop, the case does not move forward until it's resolved. The RFE issued by USCIS in these situations is not routine. It is not symbolic. It is a formal legal notice with a real deadline and real consequences. Attorney after attorney has described these RFEs in the same terms. They are specific, they are time-bound, and most critically, they are unforgiving if mishandled. The 87-day response window sounds generous. It is not, because embedded inside that window is a process that takes time. Finding a USCIS designated civil surgeon, scheduling an appointment, completing the full medical examination, waiting for Form I-693 to be prepared and sealed, and then filing the response package correctly. If any step in that chain is delayed, the window closes. And USCIS does not extend deadlines because you had trouble getting an appointment. The strategy only works for the applicant if they move fast and move correctly. Those who hesitate or who misunderstand what's being asked do not recover easily. USCIS confirmed through its official policy guidance that Form I-693, the report of medical examination and vaccination record, carries a specific validity window. For cases filed on or after November 1, 2023, USCIS updated the validity period to 2 years from the date the civil surgeon signs the form. This was a critical change. Before this update, the validity rules were less clearly defined in practice, and many applicants, and even some attorneys, operated under older assumptions. Here is what that means in plain terms. If you completed your medical exam in early 2022, had it signed by a civil surgeon, and submitted it with your I-485 package, that exam is now expired. It doesn't matter that it was accepted at filing. USCIS can still issue an RFE requiring you to get a new one before they will adjudicate your case. They targeted cases filed during the 2021 and 2022 surge period. They targeted cases where the I-693 was signed more than 2 years before the current adjudication date. They targeted situations where the vaccination record on the original I-693 did not include requirements that have since been added, including COVID-19 vaccinations for eligible age groups. This wasn't a glitch in the system. It was the system working exactly as USCIS designed it, and the burden falls entirely on the applicant. Let me walk you through the exact timeline so you understand the mechanics of why this is happening right now. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, USCIS was already struggling with backlogs. Applications slowed. Processing time stretched from months into years. People who filed their I-485 in 2021 or 2022 were told to expect long waits. That was normal. That was expected. They waited. Meanwhile, their Form Y-693, sitting sealed inside the USCIS file, had an invisible expiration date ticking down. 2 years. That's the window. By 2023, cases filed in 2021 started hitting that wall. By 2024, the wave expanded to 2022 filers, and now, in 2025 and into 2026, the problem isn't shrinking, it's growing. Because the backlog has not been resolved, cases are still sitting, and every day a case sits past the 2-year mark on the medical, the risk of an RFE increases. This is the trap, not the RFE itself. The trap is the assumption that once you submitted your application, your job was done. That USCIS would handle the timeline. That waiting was the only thing required of you. That assumption has cost people months, sometimes more. There's another layer to this that most people miss entirely, and it involves the vaccination requirements. When you completed your medical exam 2 or 3 years ago, the civil surgeon recorded which vaccines you had received or were exempted from. At the time, that list was accurate. It reflected current CDC and USCIS requirements. But vaccination requirements for immigration purposes are not static. USCIS periodically updates the technical instructions for civil surgeons. New vaccines get added. Age group requirements get revised. The COVID-19 vaccine was formally added to the required list for certain age groups. So even if your original I-693 is not past the 2-year validity mark, if the vaccination record on that form doesn't include a vaccine that has since been made mandatory, USCIS can issue an RFE asking you to submit a new or supplemental I-693 reflecting updated vaccination compliance. This catches people who thought they were safe, people who checked the 2-year date, confirmed they were within the window, and exhaled in relief, only to receive an RFE anyway. The civil surgeon's role here is critical. They have to be USCIS designated. They have to use the current version of Form I-693. They have to follow the current technical instructions. And the sealed envelope must be submitted intact to USCIS. The applicant never handles the contents. One procedural error here: the wrong form version, a broken seal, a missing signature. And USCIS may reject the submission and issue a denial or a second RFE. Now let me talk about what you should do if you are currently waiting on an I-485 decision and you haven't received an RFE yet. The first thing you need to do is locate your original I-693. Check the date it was signed by the civil surgeon. That date is on page 1 of the form, in the civil surgeon's certification section. If that date is more than 2 years ago, you are in the risk zone. Not guaranteed to receive an RFE, but at risk. If that date is approaching 2 years, you need to start planning now. Don't wait for the RFE to arrive. By the time it arrives and you read it and you understand what it's asking, you may have already lost 2 to 3 weeks of your 87-day window. The second thing you need to do is check whether your original I-693 includes all current required vaccinations for your age group. USCIS publishes a vaccination chart on its website as part of the civil surgeon instructions. Cross-reference your original form against that chart. If there are gaps, expect an RFE or proactively address it with your attorney. The third thing, and this is the one most people skip, is to check whether your USCIS case is actually approaching an active adjudication stage. Check your case status on the USCIS online portal. If your case has moved from case received to case is being actively reviewed, or if you've received an interview notice, that is a signal that USCIS is about to pull your file, which means they're about to see your medical, which means the validity date is about to matter. If you've already received the RFE, here is the discipline required. Read it completely. Don't skim. USCIS RFEs are legally specific documents. Every sentence matters. Identify exactly what is being requested. Is it a full new I-693, or a supplemental vaccination record, or a specific page of the form? Contact a USCIS designated civil surgeon immediately. Not a regular doctor, not an urgent care clinic, a designated civil surgeon. USCIS maintains a locator tool on its website. Use it. Some civil surgeons have appointment backlogs of 2 to 4 weeks. You cannot afford to wait before scheduling. Do not attempt to respond to an RFE for a medical exam issue without understanding exactly what USCIS needs. Submitting the wrong version of I-693, submitting an unsealed envelope, or submitting without a proper cover letter referencing your case number can result in a rejection that costs you more time than the original RFE. And once your response is ready, submit it with time to spare. Do not mail it on day 86. Mail it with enough cushion that you can confirm receipt. There is a broader reality underneath all of this that I want you to understand. USCIS processing delays do not pause the legal requirements tied to your application. They don't pause the validity periods on supporting documents. They don't pause the vaccination requirements. They don't pause the clock. The backlog is USCIS's problem, but the consequences of the backlog fall on the applicant. That is the structural injustice embedded in the current immigration system. You can do everything right, file correctly, submit a complete package, wait patiently, and still receive an RFE because the system took so long to process your case that your documents expired while sitting in their own filing cabinet. Knowing this doesn't make you a criminal. It makes you informed. It means you can see the trap before you fall into it. It means you can act before USCIS sends the envelope instead of scrambling after it arrives. It means you can protect your case. Protect your timeline. Protect what you've worked years to build. As this wave of medical RFEs continues to move through the I-485 backlog, more cases will be affected. More families will open envelopes on a Tuesday. More applicants who thought they were close to the finish line will be handed a new task with a hard deadline. But here is what separates the applicants who come out of this intact. They knew. They prepared. They didn't wait for USCIS to tell them there was a problem. They found the problem first. That's the advantage real information gives you. Share this video with everyone in your family who has an I-485 pending. Share it with your community group. Share it with anyone you know who is in the immigration process. It could save them months. It could save their case. Subscribe to Visa Status Radar for more protection. We protect you with real information as the next phase of this process unfolds.